Vine & Oak operates as a premium, self-service boutique liquor store. High-end wines are displayed openly, allowing customers to browse and select what they want. Deep in the reserve section, a particular bottle sits on an open rack, a special reserve vintage Shiraz. A customer, Julian, spots the bottle. He checks the printed shelf tag, sees a price of $45, and immediately places the Shiraz into a shopping cart. The transaction stalls at the checkout counter. When the store manager scans the item, she discovers a printing error on the shelf tag. The actual intended price of the special reserve Shiraz is $450. The manager apologizes to Julian and refuses to process the sale at the $45 mark. Julian insists he has a right to the bottle. He argues that the shelf display and the $45 price tag constituted a legally binding offer, and that he formally accepted that offer the exact moment he placed the bottle into his cart. This everyday retail standoff perfectly isolates the core tension of contract law. We have to determine the precise millisecond a casual, voluntary interaction locks into a legally binding obligation. To solve this, we rely on IRAC: issue, rule, analysis, and conclusion. This algorithmic framework dismantles complex scenarios to arrive at structural truths. We start in the first quadrant to identify the precise legal issue at play. For the Vine & Oak case, the overarching legal question is, did a contract form at the $45 price point? To answer that, we must break the transaction down into its mechanical parts. A contract requires an offer and an acceptance. Therefore, we have to establish the legal definition of an offer. This logic tree outlines our specific legal issue. Did the display of the wine bottle on the shelf constitute a legally binding offer, or was it merely an invitation to treat? Resolving this single binary question will automatically determine whether Julian or the store manager is legally correct. In legal reasoning, perfectly isolating the issue is half the battle. If you ask the wrong question at the start, your entire analysis will lead to an invalid conclusion. With our issue isolated, we move to the governing rule of contract law. The fundamental requirement of an offer is a clear, unequivocal intention by one party to be bound by specific terms, effective the moment the other party accepts. This matrix shows how an offer differs from an invitation to treat. An invitation to treat lacks the intention to be immediately bound. It is simply an action that invites the other party to negotiate or to make an offer of their own. The black-letter rule governing self-service retail environments is clear. Displaying goods with a price tag is generally classified as an invitation to treat, not an offer. The practical rationale behind this rule is inventory math. If a price tag were a binding offer, a store would be in immediate breach of contract the moment they ran out of stock, while multiple customers simultaneously wanted the same item. This creates a corollary rule. In a retail setting, the actual offer originates from the customer when they present the item for payment. The retailer then holds the legal right to either accept or reject the customer's offer. Contract law deliberately structures the retail rule this way to protect sellers from unlimited liability resulting from pricing errors and physical inventory shortages. We move to the third step, analysis. Here, we aggressively cross-reference the established rule against Julian's specific physical actions in the store. This timeline maps Julian's path. We test his first claim, that the shelf display was an offer. We apply our retail rule and definitively reject this. The $45 Shiraz display was merely an invitation to treat. We test Julian's second claim, that placing the bottle in his cart constituted a formal acceptance. This claim presents a logical impossibility. Because the display was an invitation to treat, there was no offer on the table. You cannot legally accept an invitation to treat. We have to move the timeline forward to the checkout counter to locate the true moment of contract formation. By presenting the $45 bottle to the manager at the register, Julian is the one formally making the offer to buy. He is the offerer. The legal power shifts. The analysis now focuses on the store manager's response to Julian's offer. The manager's refusal to process the $45 transaction constitutes a direct legal rejection of Julian's offer. The pathway to a contract ends there. By stating the correct $450 price, the store manager generates a counteroffer. Julian is now perfectly free to accept or reject this new $450 counteroffer from the store. The analytical mapping proves that the legal power to form the contract never rested with the customer at the shelf. It rested entirely with the store at the register. We moved to the final step of the framework, generating a definitive answer based strictly on our analysis. No legally binding contract was formed at the $45 price point. We explicitly invalidate Julian's position. He has no legal right to demand a Shiraz for $45. We explicitly validate the store's position. Vine & Oak is perfectly within its legal rights to refuse the sale. This definitive verdict was not reached by guessing or by arguing fairness. It was reached by the mechanical, step-by-step execution of the IRAC formula. Grounding these theoretical concepts back into the physical layout of the store reveals how retail law practically operates. A price tag on a shelf is legally just a conversation starter. The true moment of commitment only happens at the point of sale. Utilizing the IRAC structure allowed us to cleanly separate the emotional frustration of a mispriced item from the underlying legal reality. Mastering frameworks like IRAC is what allows legal professionals to transform messy, human disputes into indisputable structural logic.